Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Gyle here, and welcome back to the Forged Alliance Forever promotional series. Did you miss me? I missed you. I was on a sun lounger on a tropical island thinking of nothing but you guys. That's not strictly true, but I did miss you. I am very glad to be back, and man, I couldn't wait to get back into the casting game. It feels like an age since I was doing it. I feel pretty rusty actually, so if this one is complete garbage, please don't judge me too harshly. But so much has happened since I've been away. We've had the release of the Planetary Annihilation Alpha. It's been a lot of different casts from different casters and people let's plays of that already. There's not a great deal to see as yet. It's a husky shell of a game. There's not a lot there. If there's a great deal of demand for it for a let's play or something, I might do one or two, but I would prefer to wait until there's more there to play with and show you guys. So yeah, what else? We've also got the start of the Revolution Trophy. I've no idea what's going on there. I haven't seen the brains yet to ask them for their help or assistance in filling me in. Don't know who's been doing well or who has not turned up for their matches. The pony. So rather than get tangled up in any of that, I thought, you know what? We'll just start with a classic 2v2v2 and get straight into it. It's going to take place on the Dark Heart, and if I listen very carefully, I think I can hear our players gating in. So let's head on over to the game zone and see how they're going to get on. Now, I haven't had any time to do any special player placement team sheets or anything like that. I know you won't hold it against me because that would be gross. So let's just do it without. Up here, we'll call this Team 1. Over here, we'll call this Team 2. And as always, down here at the bottom, we'll call this Team 3. Over on the left-hand side, sporting mellow yellow, this season's very warm mellow yellow, it's Stefan D. He's going Fim, opening first land, and his teammate up here in lime green, it's RA's Mad Mozart. He's going UEF, and he's opening first air. Interesting. Over for Team 2 on the right-hand side in fecal brown, going Aeon, it's Siava. He's opening first land, and his teammate down here, also of Clan RA, sporting breast cancer awareness pink, also going RA, but also going UEF, and also opening first air. So the RA guys must know something that we don't about this map and UEF and what is good to go and what is not. They're both going to be people to watch at the start of this. Over here for Team 3, we've got Warback. No idea if that's how you pronounce it, but that's what we're going with. He's going baby blue, and he's going UEF, opening first land. And last but not least, down here at the bottom right, we've got Lapin going Seraphim, Regal Purple, and first land. So that's your lot, that's your players, and that's where they're situated. Those early engineers going about their business, going to claim stuff. A very early engineer indeed out for Siava, looking to stamp some authority on this top island, and he's actually looking to steal that beach reclaim that should rightfully belong to RA's Mad Mozart. He's already got an engineer of his own that's heading up here to the left-hand side, and we have got an accompanying spirit there for Siava that's going to come up here and run cover for this engineer, give him a little bit of intel. I wonder if when he sees this engineer coming in, that will change his plans or anything. I think he won't be able to. He will have committed to that plan long before he can do anything about it. But anyway, initial engineers coming out to the left-hand side for Warback, and he's going to start with a factory, throw that down there on the beach, and then move on to grab those mass points. Going to ignore all the reclaim, go for the mexes first, whereas Stefan D is going to elect to get in there and grab those wrecks before he moves on to the mexes. I think that's going to be a win, though, for Warback. Having that early factory in place, it's going to give him good startup base power on this bottom left-hand island. So we've already got bombers out up here for Mozart from that first air factory. What's he going after? Do a lot worse than to knock out this engineer over on the left-hand side. He's also got a scout plane with him that will run some intel very nicely indeed. Siava's moving his ACU up here. He's going to start by throwing down a land factory. That's going to give him great production power on this top island, but he's going to lose this engineer up here at the top. He's going for that Salem wreck. Probably got a good quarter of the mass out of that before he got sent to the shiny scrap metal yard in the sky. And another bomber out for RA, and this time he switched up for interceptors for some cover. Does manage to lose his own engineer that was on that island for those by those Auroras, but it should be interesting. He's got these bombers in the sky. Keep an eye on that. Meanwhile, down here on the bottom right, we've got a land factory going down there for Lapin, or being thrown down there. And he's gone completely unmolested. I think this is going to be a win at the bottom right-hand corner. Shadow appears to have no interest in that whatsoever. Meanwhile, now bombers coming in for Mad Mozart, and there's a lot of engineers that could be very badly damaged indeed. Two caught clumped up there on the side. Little pause by their players, but play resumes. And another two engineers down. This is going to cripple Siava very badly indeed. Very nice work from Mozart. And still virtually nothing over on this side of the map that Team 2 can do about it. Another two engineers in jeopardy. Another two engineers down. And this is incredibly costly. This is going to put Siava miles behind. You can see he's sitting on 9 mass income. That is a poor show. He hasn't managed to get anything over here to get this mech either. He is suffering from what you might call a severe shortage of engineers thanks to these early bombing runs from Mozart. Very nicely played indeed. And finally, Shadow makes a play over on the right-hand side by dropping a couple of engineers. There is a Zui here down there for Lapin, but that gets reclaimed very quickly indeed. He tried to get it out of there, but didn't have enough time to do it. But he will be fighting an uphill battle. Lapin already has a land factory in play, and that's busy producing more engineers. So Shadow will find that tough to push Lapin off that corner, I think. Siava now looking like he's going to get his hands on that beach reclaim after all. You can see there was about a quarter of that mass hoovered up already by that engineer. And so many thistles out for Siava trying to counter these bombers, but another couple of engineers in jeopardy. One going down, the other just gets nicked down to around 50% HP. But those thistles should be enough to protect his base now and stem the tide coming out from the left-hand side of the map. Meanwhile, Warback has managed to grab the bottom left-hand island. Stefan D has been pushed off there. You see the advantage of throwing down the factory immediately rather than just going for the reclaim. Having said that, of course, that early reclaim, you get that as soon as possible and you can start upgrading your base mexes. And that is why, of course, Stefan D is sitting on a chunky 28 mass as opposed to Warback, who's sitting on 21. So it's a trade-off. He's going to have access, obviously, to more mass in the long run. He's going to be able to lock down this bottom left-hand side. But for the moment, at least, Stefan D has got a jump start on his eco. But now those bombers still harassing over on the right-hand side for Mozart. However, we've got some interceptors in the air for Shadow, who will finally be able to do something about this air situation. Relieve some of the tensions that his teammate has been suffering by popping those bombers out of the sky. And it'll be time, I think, for Mozart to switch up tactic. Doesn't seem like he's producing bombers anymore. He's to be producing just interceptors, at least for the moment. 2 naval factories down at the bottom for Warback. None as yet for Lapin. One being hastily spammed up as quickly as possible, though. Over on the right-hand side, just one in play for Shadow, and there's a little bit of an engagement going on between one of Mozart's Thunderhead frigates and Tiger Shark sitting there for Shadow. That will go in Shadow's favor. And of course, just the one naval factory over on the left-hand side for Mozart. So very nice early play from Mozart, crippling Siava, but you would expect that. He is, if you take a look up the top right-hand corner, sitting at 1926 on the rankings. That means he's the top player, the most experienced player. However, it doesn't look like he's going to be able to use that experience to hold on to the middle island for the moment, at least. Down goes that engineer trying to spam up that plasma cannon. Shadow got a lot of units and a lot of factories on this middle island. 1, 2, 3, 4 land factories in play and a 5th underway. That will be the end of all hostile forces, or all forces that are hostile to Team 2 on that middle island, I suspect. And it's a risky thing going for that middle island. It is on the doorstep of all 3 teams. But, of course, the payoffs are pretty great. Got the 4 central mass points and then the 3 2s around the edge. So that's a full 10 mass points. You can snag all those. That's a lot of extra mass for you and yours. But, of course, you've got to invest a lot to get it. So it's a tricky, dangerous thing. And once the game gets into the T2 naval side of things, very dangerous indeed. Especially with all of the governors and the Seraphim cruisers that are probably going to be emerging on this game, what with the teams set up the way they are. And now we're finally getting a little bit of counterattack coming in from Siava, going after Mozart's interceptors. He's got 1 bomber in play, not going to be able to do an incredible amount of that. He's going to focus on some of these land units, I think, for the moment. Just a few Zuis coming out from Stefan D, looking to harass this middle island. Still, this Mex is in play there for Mozart. But look at this for Team 3, looking very strong indeed. Got both of their side islands. This whole portion of the map is more or less secure. 1 bomber down here for Stefan, but that is it. Otherwise, oh, and also this Suissel, this T1 Seraphim sub. But that is literally it for any hostile forces south of the middle island. And that's going to go a long way to aiding them in their quest to win this game. Lots of interceptors over on this side now for Shadow, though. And it's a shame they don't have more bombers to make use of this air dominance. They've gone over on the left-hand side of this map. He had a few bombers. Look at the clumped-up engineers. They could be scoring points on there for Mad Mozart. That would be a lovely shot indeed. But, of course, you haven't got the tools. Then you can't break the rules. I don't even know what that means. That doesn't mean anything. Just ignore that. Feel free to pretend that that never happened. Those bombers, though, from Stefan D, making life a little bit annoying there for Warback over on this left-hand island. Starting to produce T1 archers to try and counter it. But sitting pretty in the 50s for Warback, unless that's reclaim related. Thunderheads from Warback as well, creeping around the back edge of T1's base. Mad Mozart trying to spam down a couple of T1 torpedo launchers, but he's going to run out of engineers long before he can get those finished. He's now got T2 Navy, however, so that could be interesting. See how things develop down there. But we have also got T2 Navy there for Lapin. That is it, I think, on the tech side of things for Navy. We've got T2 Air running there for Stefan. And I think that is probably all in terms of tech for the whole field at the moment. And the combat at the moment is very kind of fractional. It's all over the place. Small groups of units not having any great impact on the game. But look at the dominance that Shadow has gained in the middle. And Stefan certainly doesn't like it. In he comes with his ACU emerging onto the beach. Massive overcharge there, grabbing a couple of kills with that ACU. He's only rocking 11,500 HP, so that's an unupgraded commander. He has a lot of health on him to spare as strikers come in from all angles for Shadow to try and deplete some of that HP. And it's kind of getting towards that portion of the game where you need to be a little bit careful about where your ACU sits. But Vulthu's on the field there for Stefan, T2 gunships, and he could cause some real pain there for Shadow. In the middle, got one TAC missile launcher in play there on the central island. You take a look at the kind of coverage that's got. That will reach all important areas of the map, save that mass point. Otherwise, it's got just about everything. And once again, onto the beach. Stefan re-emerges to thin out some of these units. A lot of archers in that mix. Shadow just kind of surrounding him with those units. He managed to shed more hit points than Stefan would feel comfortable of. But those interceptors are looking very strong indeed for Team 2. It's kind of even actually. Mozart's got quite a few inties as well. Stefan's got a few. They're going to need those. We're going to go with a heavy gunship play. To be so careful though on this map, and this is the kind of timing when you can use that kind of gunship play. As the game goes on, the Dark Heart, you're going to expect a lot of cruisers to emerge on this map, and then gunships will be of dramatically less use. And Siava getting his own back, beating down some of these engineers of Stefan's right on the front of his base. Stefan brings in that gunship to start thinning those out. But Shadow in with a few ships as well. Tiger Shots seem to be primarying the commander. The Thunderheads finish off the factory. Of course, they can't go for the commander while he's underwater. We've actually got a few gunships on the field there, a few stingers for Warback, who's therefore also made the transition to T2 Air. And we're seeing some destroyers on the field as well, so finally things heating up. And the first real kind of conflict we're seeing over on the right hand side of the map for some time. Most of the last few minutes has been centered on this area of the map, but Warback has made a push up to the vulnerable flank there from Shadow. That's a lot of Tiger Sharks moving into the mix, just kind of grabbing those ships as they come off the conveyor belt. When they have spare time, then reacquiring their targets onto the naval facilities. Still frequent air battles going on over the top of Team 1's base. And TAC missiles away, so it looks like some kind of mass sniping attempt going down for Shadow, but nicely placed buzzkill there for Mozart. Manages to save that rear mass point. And this is not looking good over on the right hand side for Shadow. He is leading the score, and he's right at the top. Him and Warback are doing the best on mass. Warback not looking so good on the buzzkill front. He's going to start losing mexes to that TAC missile launcher. Those are the first 4 kills for that TAC missile launcher. It's now going to reacquire 2 mass points over on the left hand side. And finally, Siava has gathered enough naval units to fend off those Tiger Shots from Warback, but they certainly stemmed the tide of naval units coming out of the right hand side of the map, so they definitely accomplished their mission. And it's interesting, Stefan D's not really threatening on the naval side of things. He's lost that naval factory he's got, so Warback feels like he's okay to push right with his naval units. What have we got coming out of here? That looks like cruisers underway. You can never tell with the Seraphim icons. That might be destroyers. There are a few buzzkills on the ridge there, and TAC missiles so useful on this map. Such a usual thing to see TAC missile wars going on from cliff to cliff. So generally you want to be putting up TMD on this side to defend against your main opponent on the other corner. A little bit of a conflict brewing down here on the right hand side between Siava and Warback, and a few T1 units on the field, but there are a couple of Valiant class destroyers there for Warback. He's going to back up, tactical retreat, but of course all the time thinning out those units. So very back and forth over on this right hand side. I've got torpedo bombers out for Steph and D, working on some of these units, some of these naval units. Been lingering up here from Siava. Siava has got himself a T2 land factory up there. I wonder if we're going to see some blazes on the field. Be a very nice play to move in the top here. We've already got some Riptides though being produced from Mozart, so he is going to try and utilize some of that floating T2 unit tactics for his own means. And a few Zooies in the mix there from Stefan, getting up onto the top portion of this middle island, having a couple of mech kills. And this is what I mean. Shadow has dominance in the middle. He's expended a lot of mass doing it. He has the 4 core mass points, but it's so hard to hold on to those fringe mass points. And now Shadow finding himself under threat. We've got a T2 shield gen that's just gone down there. Shadow trying to throw down some triads on the cliff edge. It's Valiant making life very difficult indeed. And it was a destroyer, I believe, that it was that Lapin was working on. He's now switched up. He's building cruisers, and life could suddenly get very difficult in this main base very soon for Shadow. He has made the transition to T2 Navy. He's starting to build Valiants of his own. He's got so many units on this middle island, but he needs them to try and defend. He's got a couple of Riptides in play, of course. Excellent counter for T1, T2 Navy. Those floating T2 units. And now a little air push over on the left-hand side. Warback asking his ally to bring some AA. That's quite a lot of Vulthus that have moved in over on the left-hand side for Stefan D. Going straight after the T1 railguns first, and then going after the Mexes. And that looks like a very nasty outcome indeed for Warback. He looks like he's potentially going to lose all forms of eco on this left-hand side. T2 mechs there, and another one. Actually, it's just the T1 mechs over there. I think he should hold on to that factory though, now that he's got his navy in place, and that will buy some time actually from Shadow. Team 3 has had to pull off their attack and defend on the bottom left-hand side. Meanwhile, Mozart making a push up here, and Bulwark cruiser in tow, affording him some very nice protection indeed. There's an Exodus there from Siava. Everyone hates the Exodus. I love the Exodus. It's such a tanky, beefy destroyer with such great range. But look at those Riptides go. Blazers rolling off the conveyor belt a little too late. Mozart was ahead of him, and has used that tactics to great effect. So T1 having a very nice mini victory there, taking out all eco down here for Warback, and doing exactly the same up here, taking that from Siava, who's already suffering mass difficulties. He can't afford to lose those 3 mass points. But meanwhile, Warback is pushing in with a little counter-attack. Lots of Valiants on the field there. A couple of FIM destroyers in tow. That's what they need to be primarying. Their attention is probably elsewhere. Meanwhile, Riptides continue with their mission up here for Mozart. And that will spell the end of Siava's occupation of this top island. Down it goes. It's quite a well-balanced 2v2v2 so far. Nice to see no one team getting singled out by the other two. And Shadow, having gone from a roaming defense around the perimeter of this middle island, has been forced into a turtle position. We've got a bit of a Zooey attack going on from Stefan D coming across the channel there. Is going to work on He's out of defenses and that T2 mass point. Finally, Shadow responds, going to send a bunch of Riptides and Strikers against those Zuis. That might have paid for itself, that attack. It's tough to tell. And Mozart's been forced to bring his ships down here to assist Stefan in the defense of this channel. It's a lot of units down here for Team 3. And that could be sticky times there for Stefan. It's unfortunate Stefan didn't manage to pick off that land factory that's now been upgraded to T2, and there's a bunch of engineers just ready to retake those mexes. But he did all he could in the time that was available to him. Meanwhile, Mozart has moved in and made himself very comfortable on this top island, has stolen those 3 mass points, and is going to work on reclaiming the mini base that was up there for Siava. Siava down to just 29 mass. Not in a good way at all. A few gunships coming in for Stefan, but that's very ill-advised indeed. They're not going to last too long. There's at least 3 governors in there, and that is a poor choice of target there for those gunships. Stefan announcing to his teammate that he's going T3 air. To be careful not to devote too many resources to air. They are slightly behind on the naval game, I think, just. Now finally some payback here for Siava. Gets an Exodus in there, picks off that Mex. Some air assistance coming in from Shadow at the same time. Hard to kill though, that little group of Riptides. And microed well. Mozart can hide him behind the hills and stuff, keep out the way of that Exodus, draw that Exodus in, and then just counter-attack on it. It's a poor placement there for that governor, taking a lot of torpedo fire from those destroyers. Pullback gets it out of there just in time. And that's so many missiles coming in now, so many cruise missiles from those cruisers. We've got to fear for the longevity there of Shadow's middle base. It served him rather well, but he doesn't seem to have done a great deal of upgrading. He's bottlenecking on power, so that's why he was appearing as low on mass as he was. Still only 77 when you compare that to, say, Stefan on 120 odd, Lapin's on 114. Now some Riptides heading south from Shadow. It's not going to be enough though. Those Finn destroyers do better than most with those ion cannons at taking out those floating T2 units. And we've got T3 sub hunters in the mix now for Lapin, and that is going to be very brutal. You see him announcing to his teammate. Warback says yay in in full chat for everyone to see. Slight error there, and a bunch of Riptides coming in from Mad Mozart. Were they a new bunch? I think they were the bunch that were hiding at the top. They've been withdrawn and reapplied to bring pressure on Shadow's base in the middle. And this is what I mean. It's so hard to hold this middle base. It's a very bold move going for it. Bulwark cruiser or bulwark ship coming in now for Mozart, but look at this, a Neptune in play, T3 battle cruiser. That is going to be a high priority target there for Team 3. It's like they're trying to get in around the edge, but look how many Stingers are in play and no cruisers. This is going to be a very harsh lesson to learn indeed for Team 1. Down goes the bulwark cruiser. All Stingers focusing in on that battle cruiser. It's trying to make its way underneath another Bulwark shield just gets in there in time. Mad Mozart comes in with his interceptors to start thinning out those stingers, but he's going to be too late. The shield collapses and down goes the battle cruiser, and Warbuck's going to want to bring those stingers back. Indeed he does, and now he's moving in with his cruisers, and look at all the interceptors just getting popped there by Team 3. They're going to have to run away in tow. There are now 2 sub-hunters on the field. As soon as I say that, one of them goes down, but that is quite the naval battle brewing over there on the left-hand side. And Team 1 needs to be really careful now. That's a lot of mass that they just lost in the form of that battle cruiser. Very nice application of pressure there from Warback with those gunships. And now he's moving over to the left-hand side, going to work on those Zuis coming in from Stefan, trying to make some impact over on this left-hand island, but he's not going to get too far. There's a lot of skyboxes there as well, so that really nullifies any air pressure that are going to be coming from Team 1 to this left-hand island. It's going to be nice and secure from air attack there. See how valuable it would have been if that land factory had been taken out earlier. But just didn't have enough gunships to pull the job off. To Shadow's credit, he's still in play here. Just 2 shield gens covering this central base, and buzzkills galore trying to defeat these cruise missile barrages that are just coming in relentlessly. Lots of riptides there from Mozart, hanging with Mr. Cooper on this beach, not wanting to commit what's sitting here in the middle in terms of PD. Not a great deal. I suppose there's quite a lot of T1 in there. There are a few triads in the mix, but very little going on in terms of naval warfare on this side of the map. There's quite a few units there from Shadow and a couple from Siava ready to come south at a moment's notice if Team 3 decided to make a push, but at the moment they seem more fixed on this side of the map. We have got ASFs in play from Stefan and more Bulwark shield boats in play as well, and another Neptune now out for Mozart, and they're going to want to protect this T2 power gen. There is rather surprisingly no TMD on the cliff edge here for Stefan. That T2P gen down to 360 HP. The onboard TMD is doing what they can from those naval units, but down it goes. Takes about 4 engineers with him as well. And is that a clink hammer? That looks like artillery fire that's flying out there from Shadow's base. Yes, it is. Very even game so far between these guys. It could go in any direction. Just one Bulwark shield boat down here for Warback. You do with getting a few more in play. And really Lapin, he's building cruisers. I understand why he's building cruisers, but having the benefit of seeing the whole map, he really needs to be focusing on sub-hunters. We've got 2 sub-hunters over here now for Stefan, so he's made the transition to T3 Navy. And all those ships there, those destroyers, sitting outside the edge of that shield. That's a slight error there, I think. Sucking up a lot of that damage. Stefan telling Mozart to make torp boats, but look at this. Riptides making landfall on this bottom left-hand island, and Stingers coming in to counter them. Trouble is, not a million miles away from that governor, so it's going to be tough to defeat this just with gunships. Governor can't stay too close to this cliff edge though, and a lot of navy going down here for Team 1. And intriguingly, Lapin has split his cruisers off and is going after Shadow's base on this side. I guess they feel like they've got all the navy that they need over here. But still those Riptides alive and well on this bottom left-hand island. I start an experimental bomber, really? Well, they have the air. That could be brutal, but that's a big expenditure of mass, and I think they need to be really worried about the way the naval game is going. Back sitting pretty down here and looks to be pushing them back. Do want them to be producing more shield boats, though. That does concern me for Team 3's health. And I think this is a response to that Clink Hammer. That's what I love about free-for-alls or this kind of format, the 2v2v2s or 2v2v2v2s. It's you can be focusing on someone and then someone attacks you or does something that annoys you and you completely switch. You don't necessarily rule your strategy or your tactics with your head. It becomes very much about anger. And I think that's why a lot of these ships have been pushed over to the right-hand side, because really that one Clink Hammer not going to cause any massive problems for you. We've got a chicken that's been completed down here for Lapin, and he could send that in into the middle and finish all of that off finally, and that would really put a hole in Shadow's eco. I realize this bottom edge, these two mexes have been claimed by Warback, who's trying to produce T2 units as quickly as he can. Has some major fail going on with the height map units going after the hillsides rather than the strategic defenses, but these wall sections are absolutely brutalizing those Riptides. They wanted to come in around the side and take that factory out. That was their best chance, but a bunch of engineers coming in now for Mozart, and still this naval battle continues. We've now got a Neptune out for Warback, but we've got a Summit, a battleship in play for Mozart, and that's very interesting. That's about 4 boats that look like they just bit the ocean right there. Down they go, and this went from looking very good down here to very, very bad. And of course, that now that there's a Summit in play, you can force fire the ground, or rather areas of the sea, and look at all of those sub-hunters die. And suddenly there's a gaping hole in the defense over on the left-hand side for Team 3. Lapin is moving those units over, and this is what I mean. If he'd had them in play earlier, they could potentially have ended this engagement finally over on this left-hand side. And now the problem is they've started a fight down here, and they're losing the side on the left, so this might finally be the culmination of events that finishes one team off. That experimental is on the move there for Lapin, heading towards the middle of the map. But all of these units, these naval units from Shadow coming down on the right-hand side, looking very ominous indeed. Clink Hammer still firing on the occasional unit on the right-hand side. And that Neptune in dire peril finally succumbs. And Stefan says apparently we win naval. He can't believe it. And I really do think it was down to Lapin deciding to go or make a move. I can't blame him. He looked like he was doing so very well indeed. Well, their team didn't look like they needed to expend the pressure, but Mozart came out of nowhere with more battleships or more battle cruisers and a battleship. That chicken makes landfall. They want to be able to keep it there to use those cannons to help defeat these units from Shadow which are coming in, and he's committed very heavily to this indeed. And not sure how it's going to work for him. There's some PD up on the cliff. Lapin is spamming up. It's under shield cover, so those Valiants aren't going to last too long underneath that kind of power. But the Riptides look like they are making landfall. On they come into the shield, going straight after a shield gen. That collapses, and now they've got free reign on a lot of the build capacity that's sitting in here. The build capacity is trying to spam up T1 PD as quickly as they can. The question is, who's going to win this? The Riptides or the Engineers? There's very little else in the area to do anything about it. That chicken has moved forward though, and out of Retribution is going to take down this middle base finally, I think. But meanwhile, Warback has just crumbled over on the left-hand side, and they have a Team 1 shaped problem over on this left-hand side. Things not looking good at all for Warback now. And this Summit can sit here and just bombard him at his leisure. Battlecruiser in play, but in retreat now on this left-hand side. These sub-hunters coming in, not going to let that get away. That's not looking good at all. There is a Summit rolling off the conveyor belt. Those Riptides were finally defeated, and now sub-hunters coming in from the right from Lapin, going after these forward units there from Mozart, primarying that battleship. We'll see how good Mozart's guesswork is about where those units are going to be, and how good his micro is. Going straight after the enemy Summit on the other side of the island, but look at that, so many sub-hunters now, and all this build capacity trying to spam up T1 torpedo launchers as quickly as they can. That gets cancelled. Warback realizes that his commander is very badly exposed, and that's a lot of damage coming in very quickly indeed. Is he going to get out of the water? No, he doesn't. And down he goes at 37 minute. Warback, having done so well in this game, finally gets ejected. Team 3, the first to lose one of their team members, and now things looking very bad for Lapin indeed. I would imagine they would probably finish him off. In come those sub-hunters, just having achieved that victory against Warback, going to help finish off those units down here. All of this build capacity is in jeopardy. This T3 naval factory is going to go down, no doubt about it. And that chicken under threat now from a broadsword and a restorer from Team 3. ASF's in play, just doing a little bit of scouting. We've got a strap bomber over the top of Siava's base as well. How's that experimental bomber doing? That is looking at around 60% done so far, so not too long to go, and that could be a game winner right there. And finally we're seeing some T3 land units in play, some Percivals, and they're getting out, making landfall. And that will be very tough for that chicken to deal with. Nice bit of micro would save that Percival indeed. Past goes that death ball of plasma. I think that chicken is not longed for this world. And Lapin absolutely surrounded. Team 1 moving in for the kill now. Got the Summit bombarding his base from back here. You've got the Zuis coming across in great number. There's very little Lapin can do about it. Praying for some kind of counterattack from Team 2 against Team 1, but Siava's not really in any position. He's still right at the bottom of the pile. Not in any position to mount any kind of offensive. He has managed to grab the top island back in the midst of all of the carnage, but you get the feeling he's not going to hang on to that for too long. Fat Boy completed another one in production, now into the green and not long away from completion, that experimental bomber. So it turns out it wasn't a silly idea after all. Team 1 from nowhere just recovered and came out of nowhere, but look at that, I didn't even see that nuke launcher that Lapin was building. What's he going for? Going straight after Shadow. Probably a mistake. Would have been better to go after Stefan or Mozart. And Shadow was on an upgrade. Is he going to get out of there? He's going to get out of there. No! He's not. Down he goes. Another guy out of this game at minute 40 on the dot. And now things looking very easy for Team 1. That was a poor choice of target. I don't really know what that's about. I don't know why you wouldn't go straight up here for Stefan, or better yet, Mozart. Doesn't look like there's... oh, there is an SMD there. You would, if you hadn't scouted, you wouldn't know how long that's been up. That's not far away from getting a missile in it. But I guess he was going for what he knew would get a kill. And that's brought him up in score considerably. Now we've got some strap bombers coming in, focusing in on Lapin's comm. And this is an assured win for Team 1, I believe. That experimental bomber very nearly finished. Lapin doing what he can to extend his own life, but eating strap bomber fire, eating battleship fire in the process, and that's surely going to be game. Shield blinks up at just the right time to block a few shots. but it's not going to survive this. One more bomb should do it. Boom! There he goes. And just in time to see experimental bomber take off. And that's coming straight up here for Siava's main base. They have air superiority. And there probably isn't a great deal of anti-air in that base. Indeed, there's virtually none. Down they go. All of that build capacity. A couple of support commanders managed to tank that explosion. Fat Boy on the ridge here from Mad Mozart going straight after Siava's comm. Is the bomber going to get a bomb off in time? Does get it off, and it's not going to land. Impacts on the shield. And the back of my eyes have dissolved. That's so bright. What a game. Very nicely played. Team 1. I gotta say, I think Dark Heart might be my favorite map of all time. It just is non-stop action. It's so exciting. Awesome to see. Well, guys, I hope that sufficed for a welcome back or a comeback or whatever you want to call it. Really enjoyed that. As always, keep those replays coming in. I've got quite a backlog to get through. People have sent me tons while I've been away, but I will try to work through them as quickly and diligently as I can. In the meantime, though, as always, stay well and stay safe. This is Gyle, signing out.